that I'm going to talk the whole time. Whoa, right? So, okay. So Coliseum, this is our terrestrial invertebrates habitat, and these are broken up into different ecosystems. So we have rainforest, grassland, and desert. And what we want to focus on is the adaptations within each ecosystem. So if you look at our signs, they talk about adaptations. So, it talks about like how its many legs help it to maneuver through the rainforest, or how the hair on the tarantula helps beat it off their bodies to keep them dry. So these are adaptations. So this area is all about how these animals survive in their areas. So when you're in here, most likely you are going to be at Rosie. When you're at Rosie, Rosie is the star attraction. It's really hard to get up and interpret. So I have what I call bartender's ears. So I can focus and then like listen, and I'm really bad at this. So if I walk by and like yell and answer at you, and you're like, how did she hear that? I do it to Adam all the time. So like if it's not too busy, I try and like listen, and I'll ask people. I'll say, I'll hold Rosie, I'll be like, do you have any questions? I'll turn to be like, do you guys have any questions? Obviously your first priority here is Rosie. We want to make sure that number one, the animal is safe, and number two, that the visitor is safe and comfortable. When you're at Rosie, the biggest thing that you're going to be doing is crowd control, and I can't emphasize this enough. Rosie herself isn't that overwhelming. It's when you have 300 school kids trying to crowd around you at Rosie where you start to panic a little bit, and things start to feel like they're out of control. And you've got a venomous animal in your hands, and it's really overwhelming, and all you want to do is put her away and get up and walk away. I've been there. Crowd control is the most important thing you can do. Doug and I have created 2 little footprints right there on the ground. And what I always tell people is I say, you know what, guys? Please stand behind those footprints. We're not going to crowd Rosie. We're not going to scare her. Take control at Rosie. So I want you guys to sit there and just know that it's your job to not only keep the visitors safe, but to keep Rosie safe. We want the visitors to have a good time. We can do that while making sure that everybody's safe. So, make sure that you're telling people to stand behind the line. If kids want to creep up, say, hey guys, can you please take 2 big steps back? We don't want to scare Rosie. You always want to ask people if they have any questions. You always want to ask them if they want to hold Rosie. And this is really important. And you guys, for those of you who have been through my animal handling training, I emphasize this. For those of you who haven't, please come to the next one, or you can turn me first. One of the biggest things that you need to do is ask the person, look them in the eyes and ask them, do you want to hold Rosie? A lot of times kids want to do what everybody else is doing, and they don't understand that maybe this big giant hairy spider is going to be in their hand, and they're not really okay with that, but they see everybody else doing something cool and getting a sticker. We never want to withhold stickers. We have awesome other stickers. We have green or brown ones you can give. So even if they're really scared, but they really want a sticker, you can say, you know what, you were so brave to think about holding Rosie. Here's a special sticker just for you. Make it seem like they're still getting something special. With Rosie, we always want to use the L grip. So if you've ever been through animal handling training, it's just a very simple grip that holds their hand flat. This not only makes it comfortable for Rosie, but it also makes it so they can't pull their hand away, and they can't squeeze Rosie. So at Rosie, you're pretty much stuck there unless it's slow, and then you can get up and walk around and talk to the few people that are in the room. So you're going to sit there, you're going to make sure the crowd control's good. You're going to, one person at a time, hold Rosie, ask them if they have any questions, talk to them a little bit. If somebody needs extra time, please give it to them. Everybody will get a turn. I promise. And I tell people this all the time. Kids are trying to get us, I say, you know what, guys, everybody's going to get a turn. Make sure that you're giving time to the person in front of you. Because this might be the first time they've held Rosie, and they are terrified, but they have wanted to do it 6 times they've been here, and they've been too afraid. And you don't want to rush them through that. This is supposed to be special. This is supposed to be fun.
That's a tough thing for me, I think, to keep in mind when you have 300 people, is not to whip them through there, really give them some time. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, take the time, take the time to be like, if the kid's a little nervous but he really wants to do it, don't be like, I'm sorry, you have to go. You can say, do you want to do it right now, or would you like to come back when it's a little slower? So really take the time to be with the visitor, answer their questions, make sure that Rosie is stopping for the picture, because there's always going to be a parent that wants to take a picture. ask if they want a picture, you know. The other thing too is for school groups, and I'm just going to emphasize this, school groups, it's 1 hold per child. All other visitors, it's 2. So we don't want Rosie to work too hard. And one of the things that I talk about, like when people ask me, well, why? Like, I really want to hold her. Like, it's fine. And I say, you know, Rosie has to walk miles every single day on people's hands. She lives her life in a burrow. So this is a lot of walking for her. She's really tired. You know, so we want to give her a rest. It's not really fair for Rosie to walk that much, right? And then they say, okay, you know. So, you know, but we don't, if somebody is really excited about it, like if you have a school group where the chaperone didn't get a picture, you can make exceptions. Like you don't have to be, these aren't hard rules, these are good guidelines to follow. We just don't want 600 school kids holding Rosie 3 or 4 times. It's a lot of walking for Rosie and it's really unfair to her. We go through a lot of Rosies. We also see, you know, a high number of illness and death with Rosies that just get worked too much. So we really want to minimize the stress on her and on the visitors. So, so if you get up and walk around, then you can talk about, you know, the adaptations and the ecosystems. So if you get a chance to walk around, take time to actually read, you know, the reader rails. Take time to read the signs in here. You know, take time to look at everything and really familiarize yourselves with it. Because this is going to be the best way for you to understand and talk to people. You know, when you're sitting there and people say, you know, well, where's Rosie come from? And you're like, I have no idea. You know, well, Rosie comes from the desert. And how you can tell is she's in the desert area. So Rosie comes from the desert, and you can say something like that. Again, if you don't know an answer, please don't make it up. These are the ones that really get back to me, and I hear about them, and they're like, somebody said, and I'm like, okay. So that just tells me I need to get better information, but that also tells me, you know, that you guys just need to say, you know what, I don't know, but let me find out for you. This station does have a radio right now, so if you ever need help, or if you have a question, or you're getting overwhelmed, like it's really overwhelming, and you just can't handle it, because it's, you're starting to stress out, your actions are going to reflect onto Rosie's. Now, Rosie cannot sense fear. Rosie, does not have any idea that you're stressed out. What you're doing, though, is going to stress her out. So when you're stressed out, you're making jerky movements. You're doing things really fast. You're kind of like, you might be like accidentally catching her little legs in your fingers because you're going fast and you're getting stressed out. Those are things that she's going to react to, and then Rosie's going to get stressed out, and then you're going to get hairs kicked on you, or you're going to get a Rosie that runs really fast and scares people, or worst case scenario, a bite, which we haven't had, so it's very rare, but we don't want, to give Rosie a reason. So if you're feeling so stressed out that you can't handle it, please call somebody. We'll either open up a second Rosie to help you out, or we'll take over and you can just go take a walk and calm down. I would rather you ask me to take over and you go take a 5-minute break to calm down than stay stressed out at Rosie. Okay?
Have you had 2 Rosies before?
Oh yeah, we do it all the time. Like on busy school group days, we open 2 Rosie stations and it works really well. You say I can help the next person in line and then they go down. And again, Rosie is all about crowd control, and I'm sure Erica can tell you she was really stressed out at Rosie, and I just told her, I was like, you are in control. You're the one in control here. You have the venomous animal.
Well, I was stressed out at Rosie. I think everybody.
Everybody. I mean, your first time at Rosie is. I was stressed out. My first time at Rosie. I mean, I got no training. This was back before they were just like, here you go, have Rosie, welcome. I was stressed out. I don't want you guys. I mean, you're gonna feel stressed out, but I don't want to maximize that stress. There are ways for us to minimize it, and one of those ways is for you to be honest with me. And if you are really not feeling comfortable holding Rosie, don't force yourself to do it. Come talk to me, talk to Sarah, talk to Christy, talk to your supervisor, whatever, and have them, set up one-on-one time. Sarah's more than willing to do one-on-one time. I'm more than willing to do one-on-one time. I'm sure Christy is if she has time. We can work with you or pair you up with like a zookeeper like Zach and Erica, who can really talk you through it because it can be overwhelming. And we've had some horror stories here, and I think that if you're calm and you're controlled, those horror stories don't have to happen that often.
On a side note, when you bring out 2 Rosies, it can be a shock to people too.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. We don't, so they'll be like,
a great opportunity to talk about the scientific aspect of our organization, because that's you guys are part of that, and that's a part of the Butterfly Pavilion that's growing.
Yeah.
It's really important to be honest about that and
Yeah.
say, well, actually, right behind this wall is a big research area where we have our scientists studying examples every single day.
Yep, exactly.
So,
You know, you want to talk about like the importance. So people are always asking. One of the biggest questions I get at Rosie is like, aren't tarantulas harmful? I say, no, actually, there's no tarantula in the world that can kill a human being. Tarantula venom is usually less than a bee sting, and tarantulas are actually helpful. Did you know that some tarantulas can live 30 to 50 years in the wild, which makes them a really great environmental indicator? Most ecologists actually use frogs as environmental indicators, but they live such a short amount of time, it's really hard to tell. But if you've got an animal living in an area for up to 50 years, that's really going to tell you the health of an ecosystem. People are going to go, oh, and then you can talk about how they eat pest insects and how they're helpful, and you can talk about how we have tarantulas here in Colorado, and if you need facts, I have millions of them, more than you'll ever want to know. So you can talk about how we're breeding tarantulas here at the Butterfly Pavilion and how important it is because tarantulas are actually going extinct. There are tarantulas that may be extinct in the wild in the next 5 years. Metallica. She'll probably be extinct in the wild in the next 5 years. If something isn't done to save her, we have a breeding program for her. So we're trying to help, repopulate her within the hobbyist trade so she doesn't have to be collected from the wild anymore. Any questions about Rosie?
how many do we actually have?
Right now we have about 60.
I just heard that one a lot.
Yeah. So right now we have about 60. You can say between 50 and 100 depending on, time of year. And they only work 4 hours 1 day a week. I wish I had that schedule.
I just want to add one thing, Andrew.
Please.
Too. With Rosie, essentially you're here to give information, make sure Rosie's safe and you're safe. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost a psychologist. I'm trying to talk you into it, but I'm trying to talk you through it. And I kind of have to remind myself that at the end of the day, it's if they want to do it, that's fine. But you aren't here to force this on them or really talk them into it. It's okay to give them info to make them feel better about it, but you don't need to not let them leave until you tell them everything you know about it to try and get them to hold it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, it's their comfort level. And again, you need to ask them, if they're really not comfortable, if you see that kid that's really not comfortable and his parents are pushing him,
That's the
and
thing
this
I
will
see
happen.
all the time.
So the kid doesn't want to hold him, but the parents are pushing him. And this is when you need to look the kid in the eye and say, do you want to hold the spider? And then they say, and then I tell the parents, this should be something fun. This should be something that's supposed to help relieve his fears. If we force your child to do this, it's just going to encourage those fears, and it's not going to be a fun experience. So why don't you guys go walk around, think about it, and if you want to come back, Rosie's here until 5.
Another challenging thing you get too is the kids who want to do it, but then they're really jerky, and you kind of have to make a judgment call based on your comfort level. If they're yanking away every time you're just about to get there, you could maybe say, maybe we need to take a break and think about it, because really, you need to make sure she's in good shape, so.
I have said no.
Yeah, I have actually too.
I've had to say,